Israel has unleashed one of the biggest air attacks on the West Bank in nearly 2 decades. Israeli forces hit the city of Jenin with drone strikes overnight. At least 6 drones were seen circling over the city and the adjoining camp. Between 1,000 and 2,000 Israeli soldiers entered the city. They were backed by armored bulldozers and snipers on rooftops. The Jenin brigades, a unit made of Palestinian jihadists, engaged with the Israeli forces, and one of the unmanned aircraft was shot down. A gun battle between the two sides lasted well into the day. At least 8 Palestinians were killed, 50 others were injured. Many remain in critical condition. Just have a look at these visuals. You can see Israeli soldiers firing towards the Palestinians inside the refugee camp. Israeli army bulldozers destroyed roads during the raid. You can see the crumbling buildings and the flattened vehicles strewn on the roads. The medics are under pressure as the raids continue. The Israeli military targeted an apartment in the center of Jenin's refugee camp. It said the apartment was being used as a joint operational command center. The refugee camp in Jenin is a densely packed area. It houses around 14,000 refugees in less than half a square kilometer. The violence set off protests in Gaza. Dozens took to the streets, standing in solidarity with Jenin. Smoke raged on as protesters burned tires. Listen in to what they had to say.
It is clear that the occupation has started a new era by carrying out a large-scale military operation against Jenin camp using planes and tanks. The resistance there is defending itself and its camp, and the occupation will fail in achieving its goals to take Jenin out of the equation of the struggle against the occupation.
In the Palestinian resistance, we stress that the occupation will pay the price for this crime. This crime cannot pass without a response for the Palestinian resistance. The occupation bears full responsibility for it. All scenarios and options are open before the Palestinian resistance unless the occupation ended its aggression on Jenin.
Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen pointed fingers at Iran. Meanwhile, this is what he said.
We are striking the terrorism hub with a great strength. I want to emphasize that we don't have a fight with the Palestinians. Actually, our fight is with the proxies of Iran in our region, which is mainly with the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, with both are a terrorist organization which financed by Iran. And Iran's target is to escalate our region.
Now, the refugee camp in Jenin has been at the heart of an escalation of violence across the West Bank. Israel says the attack was intended to, quote-unquote, break the safe haven mindset of the camp. It says the camp is a hornet's nest, which houses hundreds of fighters from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Fatah. In fact, Israeli officials have suggested that the forces could remain in Jenin for days. And what does that mean? Are Israel and Palestine on the brink of war? Because such flare-ups have often resulted in wars in this part of the world. The 11-day war in 2021 was the most recent incident. It began as the Hamas group in Gaza fired long-range rockets towards Jerusalem. The barrage followed days of clashes between the Palestinian protesters and the Israeli police at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Jihadists fired over 4,000 rockets into Israel. Throughout the fighting, dozens of projectiles flew as far as Tel Aviv. Israel, meanwhile, carried out hundreds of airstrikes targeting what it said was Hamas's military infrastructure. The war caused widespread destruction in the Gaza Strip. It left more than 200 people dead, over 1,700 injured. Israel claimed to inflict heavy damage on Hamas. Hamas also claimed victory, and the two sides ultimately agreed to ceasefire. The fighting ended inconclusively. 2 weeks ago, Israel carried out an airstrike near Jenin. This was its first drone strike in the West Bank since 2006. And now there is another flare-up, one that is being called the fiercest in almost 2 decades. Will this lead to another war? If it does, then it will be at a time when Israel is dealing with an internal rift. Remember, in a U-turn, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly reassured members of his cabinet that he still supports a watered-down version of the controversial judicial reforms. And this has fueled protests across the country. Thousands are expected to stage demonstrations at the airport. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.